Imagine a summer day so hot that your shoes literally melt into the ground. You run inside, flip a switch, and cold air instantly fills the room. It feels completely normal to us today. But what if you took away that switch? What if you took away the entire electrical grid? No fans, no refrigerators, and absolutely no air conditioning. For thousands of years, this was the brutal reality of every single human on Earth. Summers were not just uncomfortable, they were a yearly battle for survival. If you could not cool down, the heat would simply end your life. Yet, our ancestors did not just survive the scorching heat. They built massive empires in the middle of burning deserts. They wore heavy clothes and built grand cities without ever breaking a sweat. How did they pull off this impossible feat? The secret lies in a series of ancient, mind-bending inventions that we have completely forgotten. Secrets that allowed them to literally freeze water in the middle of a blazing desert. To understand how they did it, we have to look at the human brain's oldest trick, tricking nature itself. Let us travel back thousands of years to a time when survival meant outsmarting the sun. The first challenge was the most obvious one: shelter. When the sun beats down today, our modern concrete buildings turn into literal ovens. Concrete traps heat and radiates it right back at us. But ancient builders understood a profound psychological rule of nature. They knew that underneath the burning earth lay a world of constant chill. In ancient Cappadocia, people did not build upward, they dug downward. They carved entire multi-level cities directly into the volcanic rock deep underground. While the surface world baked at over 40 degrees Celsius, the underground city stayed at a perfect, constant temperature. It was nature's own basement, completely isolated from the solar fury above. But what if you lived in a place where you could not dig holes into the ground? What if you were surrounded by nothing but endless, shifting desert sand? This is where ancient engineers became true wizards of physics. In ancient Persia, they looked at the hot, blistering wind and decided to capture it. They built tall, beautiful mud brick towers called badgers, or wind catchers. These towers did not just sit there, they acted like giant, passive lungs for the buildings below. The tower caught even the slightest breeze high above the ground where the air was cooler. It forced the air downward, pushing it over underground channels of cold water. As the hot air touched the water, a magical transformation occurred. The water evaporated, instantly stripping the heat away from the air. This cooled air was then pushed into the living spaces, dropping the indoor temperature by 15 degrees. It was a fully functional, zero-electricity air conditioner made entirely of mud and water. But the ancient world did not stop at just cooling the air. They wanted luxury. They wanted ice. Imagine living in a desert where water is scarce, and the heat feels like a physical weight. Now imagine eating a scoop of freezing cold cherry sorbet in that exact same desert. It sounds like a time travel paradox, but it was a regular summer treat for ancient Persian kings. They stored ice all year round in architectural marvels called yakhshuls. These were massive, dome-shaped structures built with a special heat-resistant mortar. During cold winter nights, they would channel water into shallow pools next to the dome. Through a process called radiative cooling, the heat from the water radiated directly into the clear night sky. Even if the air temperature was slightly above freezing, the water would turn to solid ice. They would harvest this ice, store it in the deep subterranean pits of the yakhshul, and seal it shut. The dome's design allowed any remaining heat to rise and escape through a small hole at the very top. The ice inside remained frozen through the entire peak of summer. While the common people suffered in the heat, the elite enjoyed iced drinks in the middle of July. Further west, the ancient Egyptians faced a different kind of dry, oppressive heat. They did not have giant ice domes, but they mastered the psychology of airflow and moisture. They discovered that hanging wet reed mats over their doors and windows completely changed the room's energy. As the dry desert wind blew through the wet mats, it picked up moisture and cooled the entire house. They also filled shallow clay pots with water and placed them in strategic draft zones. The porous clay allowed water to slowly seep through to the outside surface and evaporate. This kept the water inside the pot icy cold, providing a refreshing drink even on the hottest days. In Rome, the emperors took a much more aggressive and expensive approach to the problem. They did not want to wait for evaporation, they wanted instant, brutal cold. They ordered thousands of slaves to march up into the distant mountains during winter. The slaves packed massive amounts of snow into deep trenches and covered them with straw. During summer, this snow was carried all the way back to Rome on fast carts. The emperor would have the snow piled high inside his palace dining halls just to cool the air during banquets. Some emperors even built massive snow mountain gardens in their courtyards just to look at something cold. It was an incredible display of wealth, power, and human dominance over nature. But what about ordinary people who could not afford slaves or giant mud towers? Their survival depended on changing their daily habits and wearing the right clothing. Today, we think wearing as little clothing as possible is the best way to stay cool. But ancient desert nomads knew that exposed skin absorbs heat directly from the sun and gets sunburned. They wore loose, flowing, light-colored robes that covered their entire bodies. The loose fabric created a chimney effect, forcing air to circulate along the skin and evaporate sweat. They also adjusted their entire daily rhythm around the movement of the sun. The concept of the midday siesta was born out of pure survival necessity. When the sun reached its peak, all work stopped, and the world went completely silent. Our ancestors understood that you cannot fight the sun with brute force, you have to adapt to it. Today, we rely heavily on mechanical cooling systems that consume massive amounts of energy. We have traded ancient architectural wisdom for a simple plastic remote control. But as our world gets hotter, the brilliant, passive designs of our ancestors are starting to look less like ancient history, and more like the exact blueprint we need to survive the future.